A Thai hospital reveals that its youngest patient from the turbulence hit Singapore Airlines flight 321 is a 2-year-old who suffered a concussion. The plane was travelling from London to Singapore when it was diverted to Bangkok for an emergency landing on Tuesday. Some 20 passengers on board remain in intensive care. Of the 40 people on the flight still under treatment, 22 patients have spinal cord injuries and 6 have brain and skull injuries. The director of Bangkok's Samithiwit Siranikarin Hospital say that there are no life-threatening cases, but the complete breakdown of passengers and crew under treatment is still unknown. Investigations into the incident are currently underway. Officers of Singapore's Transport Safety Investigation Bureau arrived in Bangkok 2 days ago, and as the plane involved is an American-made Boeing, the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board is also deploying 1 representative and 4 technical advisors. Thai authorities are also assisting. The plane remains parked on the tarmac at Suvarnabhumi International Airport. Our correspondent May Wong has been in Bangkok following the treatment of passengers from Flight 321. She gives us the latest from Bangkok.
Since the Singapore Airlines accident on Tuesday, this is the very first time that this Samithiwit Siranikarin Hospital has actually held a news conference to try and provide little more details, on the patients that they're treating. This hospital is the main hospital out of 3 hospitals that are treating the patients. 40 of them are here. The youngest patient is a revelation, 2-year-old child with concussions as well as bruises and scratches. That child is considered to have suffered mild injuries, as opposed to the elderly, which is the oldest patient that they are treating here, 83-year-old patient, and that patient suffers from spinal cord injury. The hospital did not want to go into details, citing patient confidentiality. Another new element to this is they have revealed that some of the patients suffer from paralysis because of the accident. Again, they don't want to say who the patients are or what nationality those patients are who are suffering from this paralysis, and whether or not it's permanent paralysis. They are also not willing to state it at this point because it's early stages, as they say, because it'll take time to properly diagnose all the patients. And yet another revelation is the fact that this hospital has never treated victims regarding a very violent air turbulence incident. So this is all new information that has just been revealed by the hospital. And also they said even though they've never treated patients dealing directly with a violent air turbulence, they are able to cope with it simply because, for example, spinal cord injuries, those are commonly seen in car accidents as well, which the hospital doctors have treated before. But obviously this is on another scale, and they are using the same methods to try and help those patients involved.
Singapore Airlines says that it has taken what it calls a more cautious approach to managing turbulence during a flight. Not only will hot beverage services be stopped, it will also suspend meal service. Now, crew members must now buckle up when the seatbelt sight is on, and SIA says that it will continue to tell passengers to do the same during turbulence. The airline adds that it will continue to review processes. Following the incident, former airlines captains say that they are expecting more training for pilots to handle serious turbulence. That's especially as climate change could cause weather conditions to worsen and occur more often. A Singapore Airlines flight SQ321 from London to Singapore had to make an emergency landing in Bangkok after encountering severe turbulence. 1 person died, dozens of others were injured. Alif Amshah with this report.
This was the result when SQ321 encountered severe turbulence over the Irrawaddy Basin in Myanmar on Tuesday. Typically, turbulence occurs when an aircraft hits air currents, causing it to roll, pitch or drop suddenly. But extreme cases can take place and it can happen in a flash.
What happened on SQ321 is definitely a rare occurrence. It is clear turbulence. It was during daytime. So it wasn't that the pilots could not see, let alone using their weather radars. It was not that they could not see or their visibility was restricted.
He adds that the crew are well trained to manage emergencies, such as when injuries are reported.
So what do the pilots do? They immediately look for a suitable airport to put the aircraft down so that whoever is injured, whoever is hurt, whatever's happened can be addressed with minimal loss of time. So pilots are trained to do this. Even in a medical emergency, for example, if a passenger is severely ill on board, what do the pilots do? They will look for a suitable airport immediately where there's good medical facilities, good weather conditions, of course.
Another ex-captain says that he expects that pilots could undergo more training on how to handle turbulence, which are becoming increasingly frequent due to climate change.
With our present-day El Nino effect, is getting real hot and plenty of updraft everywhere, especially in the coastal countries, the Asian environment especially. I would see that the training will be focusing quite a lot on the turbulence during takeoff and landing, handling of a severe turbulence in flight as well.
Mr. Chung says it's always better to be safe than sorry. This means keeping your seatbelt fastened at all times, as a bumpy ride could strike any time without warning.
Now, to tell us more about turbulence and its dangers, I'm joined now by Mr. Liu Huising. He's aerospace specialist at the School of Mechanical and Aeronautical Engineering at the Singapore Polytechnic. Good evening to you, Mr. Liu. Thank you for joining us. Can you explain to our audience, first of all, what clear air turbulence is and whether it can be avoided?
Okay. Clear air turbulence is actually turbulence which occurs in a cloudless region, which is invisible to pilots and also causes buffeting to the aircraft. It's also very troublesome because it cannot be detected, or actually the pilots also will not be able to have any visual clue. And of course, the weather radar return to the pilots to warn with the upcoming hazard is also limited. Okay, for various media reports of the aircraft losing 6,000 feet in 3 minutes is not the issue. The main issue is the sudden change in the vertical speed and the G4 and the G forces, and the pilot and the occupants will actually experience. So that is actually the cause of that rocky situation undergoing by the passengers. Then,
Right. So, I mean, there are, the investigation, of course, is still ongoing. The flight data recorder is going to provide a good deal of information to investigators about just what happened. The black box on SQ321, that will be examined from here on. There's also the cockpit voice recorder, the recordings from that to consider. What kind of data are investigators likely to be looking out for in this case, do you think?
Okay, the flight data recorder collects basically the aircraft performance ranging from altitude, airspeed, heading, vertical airspeed, and of course control input. And the voice recorder also collects information like the communication between the pilots, the air crew, and what is actually noise around the aircraft. I think these are very important information which they need to gather so that they can actually so-called create the situation the aircraft actually experienced in a virtual environment, like you say, you have ever seen in air crash investigation documentaries, and maybe like what they can go through in a flight simulator. And this is important because from there they can piece together what actually really happened.
And in piecing this together, what happened in this particular incident, we anticipate that the pilots, the crew, perhaps even the passengers may be interviewed as part of that probe.
Oh, yeah.
And if they are, what kinds of questions are the investigators going to typically ask them?
I think the investigators will probably ask what actually they have experienced during the flight and during that incident, the pilots, the air crew, and from there, they will use those interviews, and with the evidence they also collected from the flight data recorder and the voice recorder, and to ensure everything goes along the same line. And then from there, they can also determine what would actually happen during that period of time.
Right. Once they have all of that information, I mean, first of all, they have to feel that the information is as complete as they can get, right? What do they do with those findings, Mr. Liu?
So, of course, after they have collected all that data and information, they will, of course, finally present the report. The investigators will present the report and share with all the aviation industries and all the airlines and in both all around the world. And of course, they will, of course, try to find ways to further improve the procedures to ensure all the protocols and operations and safety has been followed. And of course, in the future, to also plan for better training of the air crew, the pilots, and of course, put in place more maybe requirements to ensure the safety of all the passengers on board any flight.
All right, Mr. Liu, thank you very much for your perspectives this evening. Mr. Liu Hui Sing, the aerospace specialist at Singapore Polytechnic. And this news just in, Singapore Airlines says that 65 passengers and 2 crew members on board flight SQ321 are still in Bangkok. Both crew members and 46 passengers are being treated in hospital. CEO Goh Poon Chong has visited those affected and provided his personal assurance that the airline would take care of them. SIA has also deployed customer care representatives to help the passengers. Now, these are trained staff volunteers who are responsible for providing updates, support and assistance to each passenger. The airline is in contact with all passengers and crew still in Bangkok.